just a few housekeeping things to remind everybody that we have our luncheon on virtual luncheon, of course. We have that on Wednesday, the 17th, same time, 11 to 1. We got a phenomenal panel like today. We've just been doing some really good stuff and having some wonderful people. So we're excited to have Blue Cross and Blue Shield is going to be with us, Tracy Mack and Heather Marino. So we're going to be talking about health and wellness balancing. Yes, today we're talking about PPP, but we know in this pandemic, some people are stressed, not having a check, not clients not paying on time, just everything that comes with entrepreneurship plus 20. So I ain't even gonna say plus 1, I'm gonna say plus 20. So we are gonna talk about the stresses of entrepreneurship in a different space because we're in a different space. Somebody said, I like how Emily phrased it, the new now. And so we're in a new now. How are we adjusting to it? And we got to be honest as entrepreneurs. One thing, and I'll share this in my book, I wrote about how entrepreneurs have the highest stress level. A lot of people don't know that. Well, entrepreneurs have a high stress level and a high rate of heart attacks. So we want to talk about that from a health perspective. And you can't help but when you talk about health and wellness and talk about health, you got to talk about health. You got to talk about everything. And so we're looking forward to that on the 17th, next Wednesday. You haven't signed up, you have time to do that. Touring and coaching, they're going to do a pitch party. Well, pitch event. I say pitch party. I want to make it sound fun, but it's a pitch event. And so we are excited for that kickoff in March. And shortly after that, we'll have another event in April with them, spending some time working with Bank of America to speak to them. And then in May, they will actually, everything's on the website. And then in May, they'll actually present. And so we are excited. Young entrepreneurs, there's a lot of young entrepreneurs. And even if they just have a concept, we're asking them to come. Let us help cultivate what you're doing and speak to some people that's living the life of entrepreneurship. And so we are excited about that. And I did some work with Bank of America and Junior Achievement last year. I did Junior Achievement when I was in the corporate world and I was working for GE. We used to do Junior Achievement a lot. And so last year, Cameron invited us along and I represented NABO to do some work with Junior Achievement. And Cameron, we're doing Junior Achievement again this year, right?
Yeah, that is something that we're working on coming up. So would love to have anybody participate. Carnell and I had a fantastic time with a group of folks last year.
Yes, we did. We had a wonderful time. So we're going to come back to you on that. But get ready for the young entrepreneurs, what we're doing with NABO too, and the young entrepreneurs. And Cameron, representing Bank of America. We also have Duke Energy. They're going to be on the judges on the panel to judge, and we're looking for 1 or 2 more. So wonderful things. And then I'll wrap up with, we have a town hall meeting. That date hasn't been posted. We have been talking to Congress about it. And so they're going to come and talk about the state of businesses. Where do we stand? What's going on? We have new leadership, and so we want to ask some questions. So that is going to be in April. The date had to change, and so that's what we're trying to work out. So just all the wonderful things. I'm going to wrap this part up. Any questions anything about what we're doing or how can you get more information, I think Holly just put the link in. Holly, you just put the link in, right?
I just want to verify. I just went to go register it. So the luncheons are the virtual luncheons are $20 if you're a member. They're not free.
The luncheons are not free. The bring your own lunch, that one is free. So it's just it's similar to how it was before. We have overhead costs. We got to be realistic, and so we try to keep the costs down and be comparable to, you know, other organizations. And so we hopefully, you know, as a member, the cost is really good. We might have to give up about 4 Starbucks. That depends what you get at Starbucks. If you like me, my Starbucks runs $10 to $12 every time I end up there. I'm like, what in the world did I get? So $20, you know, that's 2 Starbucks. Give it up, you know. But we have really worthwhile information going on, and we know that our group is still growing. Yes, some people experience some pain. That's part of owning a business. But we can say people have grown through and thrived. Our word is thrive, and they have thrived through this. And so, yes, $20. I know I gave you the long version of that, but hopefully that answered your question. Any other questions? Check out the website. Oh, did anybody attend the Connections and Conversation on Wednesday?
I did, of course.
Holly's at everything, and we're so glad. Kathleen, make sure that you join that. Make sure that you join that. That's going to be a good connection for you. Because they have been having some new people coming in. So make sure that you definitely join that. Okay. All right, let's get started. No other questions. We're going to keep this going. I know it looks small, but just trust me, a lot of people listen to our replays. We do know that. So, and people start coming in. I know Emily is running late. There are a few other board members too that's going to be here because this is good stuff. So just I like to say trust the process. It's going to be good stuff. So I want to introduce now our moderator. She's no stranger in so many ways. I love her. I love her. I love her. Attorney Karina Lemons received a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of South Carolina, where she majored in political science with a minor in psychology in 1998. Attorney Lemons, and somewhere along the line, I don't see this, but I need to call her actress as well, Lemons. She received her Juris Doctorate from North Carolina Central University School of Law in 2001. She has been practicing law for more than 18 years in Durham, North Carolina. She has been a general practitioner for most of her career, but now focuses her practice in the areas of consumer and small business bankruptcy, employment law, and entertainment law. She is also the host and creator of her own television talk show entitled It's Your Life, as well as an actress. So I'm excited to have Karina. I will mention, yeah, we wear the same pink and green too, so I just had to plug it in. But thank you, Karina, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Carnella. I'm excited to have part 2 of this discussion on the PPP program. And I'm going to introduce our panelists, and I am going to have a little brief conversation with each panelist before we move on to the group questions that I have to pose to everyone. And then at the end, I'm sure we'll have plenty of time for any questions that you all may have. So I'm going to start with Bank of America is one of our sponsors. So I'm going to start with introducing Cameron P. Calderwood. He is the Vice President, Senior Small Business Broker, Preferred and Small Business Banking Department of Bank of America. Cameron is a self-motivated team player with over 7 years of banking experience who is passionate about delivering world-class service and positively impacting the financial lives of his clients through a wide variety of banking solutions and expertise in credit, cash flow analysis, and commercial lending. He builds meaningful relationships with individuals, business owners, and partners within the community. Cameron joined Bank of America in 2013. He then started in 2015, Cameron received the Pinnacle Club Award. Through the years, Cameron has been continuously recognized for his sales achievements and partner referral contributions. Cameron joined the small business banking team in 2017. He is a recent Small Business Mastery graduate, achieving a senior title in his role while achieving Pinnacle again for 2018 and 2020. Cameron resides in Cary, and he is active in the local school community and volunteers regularly for Junior Achievement of Wake County, while also acting as the Bank of America Greater Raleigh's ambassador for the National Association of Women Business Owners. So Cameron, before we move into the discussion with everyone and introduce the rest of our speakers, I wanted to know, what is it about small businesses and working with them that inspires you the most?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that lovely introduction. And I would definitely say the passion to be able to help business owners and really help them navigate what can be a very seemingly tricky world in business banking in general. Really being able to help clients and offering solutions to make things more, much more streamlined, help them with understanding how we can offer solutions or provide feedback of what other business owners are doing. And, for me, what wakes up every day at the end of gets me to wake up every morning is, seeing the differences that we can help these clients, especially during times like these when clients are really turning to, folks such as ourselves with financial expertise to help them get through the pandemic, or, maybe they've got a new project they're trying to accomplish, or they're trying to understand, what's the best way to solve a problem. For me, that's really what I love doing, and certainly what my role entails and helps. So I would say that for me, just the ability to provide those financial expertise and see how that really makes a difference in our business clients' daily lives.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Cameron. Our next speaker on the panel is Patrick Rodriguez. He is the Senior Area Manager with the U.S. Small Business Administration. Patrick Rodriguez is a big picture thinker, super connector, and deep generalist whose career arc bends toward public service. He joined the North Carolina SBA District Office in 2014 and took over the Senior Area Manager position based out of Raleigh. He assists business owners, lenders, and government contractors to access SBA programs and services throughout 25 Northeast counties. Previously, Patrick worked as an economic development specialist and public information officer in the Los Angeles SBA District Office. Before joining the SBA, he worked for 5 years as a senior congressional aide in Southern California, as well as in private and nonprofit sectors. Patrick grew up in Austin, Texas, and graduated from the University of Texas, and recently earned his MBA from Kenan Flagler Business School. As an Army veteran, he conducts veteran outreach and training, including SBA Boots to Business and National Veteran Small Business Week events. Patrick, Brenda, and their 2 sons settled in Wake Forest. Thank you for your service, Patrick.
Thank you, Karina. I appreciate it.
We have another veteran here on the call, Kathleen, who also works with veterans.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to pose the same question to you, Patrick. What is it about small businesses that inspires you the most?
I'm always amazed at their ability to just switch gears at any one moment and put on different hats. And I'll be talking to someone and they'll be telling me in depth on how they are, a roofer or a plumber or in their trade in their 20 years of experience. And then the next day they're working on their QuickBooks and they're flipping that hat, and then the next day they're talking about financing, a vehicle. So it's an amazing for me just to hear how deep these folks are in different areas, and it's an amazing world we live in when you can do a million different things and earn a living at it. And it just amazes me at all the different vocations and businesses and ideas that people have. And it's just an interesting world we live in when I see different people doing so many different things and enjoying it and making a living at it.
Yeah, entrepreneurs are
Yeah.
extremely multi-talented and multifaceted people for sure.
Mhm.
Thank you for agreeing to serve on our panel today. And returning to the stage is Megan Ciacci of Montesino and Ciacci, PA. She was part of our part one of our discussion that we had a few months ago. And Montesino and Ciacci, PA is a full service accounting firm serving individuals and owners of small and mid-sized businesses with their tax, QuickBooks, and accounting needs. The firm is known for its expertise in resolving IRS tax problems, as well as providing monthly bookkeeping and QuickBooks services to small businesses in all industries, including services, retail, liquor, professional, construction, landscaping, manufacturing, distribution, and many others. Founded in 1982 as Charles K. Montesino CPA, the firm was renamed Montesino and Ciacci PA in 2014 and became a father-daughter establishment. Located in Sewell, New Jersey, the firm serves its clients in New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. Welcome back, Megan.
You.
So what is it about your clients, your small business clients, that inspires you the most?
So I'm right there with them. I'm a small business owner, just like the majority of my clients are. And it's just, I can give them that, that camaraderie. I'm dealing with the same things that they're dealing with so many times. So they know that they can come to me, and we troubleshoot things together. But really much like Cameron and Patrick said, it's really helping those small business owners in what their goals are for their businesses. And with my expertise in the accounting and the finance, I can really help them use their accounting to make decisions on their business. And that's where my passion lies, is helping them reach all of their goals personally and professionally when it comes to finance.
That's awesome. Thank you, Megan. So let's get into this discussion about the PPP loans or grants, depending on what happens on the back end, right? I want to know from you, Patrick, what is it that is different about this second round of PPP loans than the first round of PPP loans?
Geez, that's a loaded question.
What are some of the highlights? Because we're going to get into the meat.
The meat stuff. Yeah. The highlight is that that there are, a lot of lenders that are still out there doing loans for PPPs. I'll back up to the big picture, and that is the first time in 2020, lenders were really at a disadvantage, having to put all this together on the fly. And now we've had this experience in 2020 of PPP lending. Now they're coming back to it in 2021. They have the processes, they have the procedures, they have the staff, and now they're able to, accommodate the flow of potential borrowers much better than they did last year. So folks had to rush to get their money last year. This year, there has not been that tidal wave of applicants. It's been a constant stream, and the lenders have been able to absorb those applications more easily than they did last year. So it's hopefully going to make it easier for small businesses to apply and get PPP loans this year, because there's so many additional lenders out there across the country that are accepting non-depository customers. So just because you don't have an account with them, there's about 30 or so lenders out there that will do PPP loans to anybody. And so that's a really big benefit. I think this time around is a big change from last time.
Cameron, as a lender, you know, have you seen like an influx in applications this second time around?
Yeah, great question. I think very much relevant to what Patrick was just stating. Of course, many folks that have the ability to apply for the second round, of course, are taking advantage of that ability, and of course, many folks that really need this, we certainly can feel for that. Much to Patrick's point, I think there's been an absolute influx of applications, but much to his point where he stated that this time it's I think the first round we all experienced where it was a race to get there as quickly as possible because there were so many unknown variables of, how much money will be available and allotted and so on. So this time around, exactly was said. I think this time lenders have the ability to create specific departments to help the flow of clients coming in. I think a major change as well is I think just the anxiety level overall in speaking with many business owners. I think that because so many lenders now have a much better understanding and feeling of the guidelines, they've had time to build out a process that wasn't necessarily done overnight. Much of the lenders had to do quite literally. So yeah, I think this time around it's a little bit different in that stance that there's just more time in general. There's more understanding of the process. The lenders have had time to build out the process, create specific departments, create roles for specific team members. And so, yeah, I think it's a much smoother and better transition this time around. And as you can imagine, yes, there's a lot of clients coming in from all directions to of course be able to take advantage and get the help that they need.
Now, Patrick, in terms of the qualifications, that application process, are there any differences between the eligibility requirements as the one from the first round of the PPP loans, or are the requirements and qualifications the same for this second PPP loan?
Well, across the board, the big one is 500 or less employees was for 2020 PPP lending. So if you had 500 employees or less, you could apply. This time around, it's 300 employees or less. I know that sounds like a lot of employees as far as a small business, but that was the biggest change across the board. And also the eligibility for the second draw is a huge change, and that is you have to show at least a 25% or greater reduction in gross receipts, in gross revenue. So you have to have a certain level of economic distress in order to get the second draw versus the first draw, where you do not have to show any type of reduction. So those are the big two, I think, that kind of stand out in my mind.
So Megan, in terms of tax considerations, are there any differences in the tax treatment of these PPP loans?
Compared to the first round?
Yes.
As from what we're seeing, especially coming out from the AICPA, there's no determination yet on what's going to happen with the second round of the loan forgiveness. But the assumption is that it's going to piggyback on what it was last year. So the amount we're assuming at this point, but hoping for the best, but planning for the worst with my clients. We're figuring that best case scenario is the amount that's forgiven, it's not income and you can still write off the expenses. But worst case is you can't deduct those expenses. And at least this time we have the whole year to plan out for that if that's going to be the case. Whereas last year, those decisions were made so late in the year that there was no time. If it went the other way, there wasn't really much time to do any planning with my clients. But at least now we're only in the first quarter of the year. There's time to plan if they can't use those payroll expenses that were forgiven as expenses.
I know we were having a pre-conversation a little bit earlier of the difference between the federal and the tax. And Patrick, you had some guidance on what North Carolina Department of Revenue is doing in terms of the treatment of those funds.
I hate to give out tax advice, especially with the accountant on the line.
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
pull up the AICPA. The AICPA has a chart on every state, how they're handling it. You
Okay.
can only get it if you are logged in as a member. So I can pull this and share this. But North Carolina,
awesome.
like Patrick did say, right now, North Carolina, you cannot use those expenses those payroll expenses and the other that you used to forgive that first round of PPP. You cannot use them as expenses on your tax return. There is stuff in the works to change that. I don't know, like you said, I am in New Jersey, so I'm not sure of North Carolina tax and how quickly, but legislation was introduced to change that.
Right.
Okay.
And the forgivable amount is taxable too. So that's double hit on North Carolina taxes.
Oh, wow.
So that's why they're trying to change it.
Yeah. It sounds like we'll need to amend our tax returns because they're due soon in a few days, right?
But to be clear, it is not treated as income on the federal side. So
Okay. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the forgiveness. So what happened? What are the requirements to have this loan forgiven? And this would be, any of you can answer this. Cameron, did you have any, did you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay.
And yeah,
So-
and Patrick, if you want to piggyback a little bit too.
Yeah, so
sorry.
the questions are about the forgiveness of this second PPP loan.
Yeah, so as far as the second round, we haven't necessarily gotten we're hearing so far that the guidance will be, and Patrick, again, feel free to jump in, that it will be very similar to the first round of forgiveness as far as the documentation that will be required. We have not heard yet if there will be anything that will pass as far as legislation, such as the first round, where anything under 150,000 essentially will be forgiven, and you would just attest to this in a pretty simplified 15-question process. We have not heard if that can be something that comes through on the second round, but we certainly know that the same thing as the first round, as far as documentation requirements as of now, will be proof of showing how the actual expenses were used, payroll reports, bank statements, things of that nature. So we do know certainly that we do want folks to know that that's going to be a requirement just much as the first round. But there might and could be very similar legislation for certain amounts. But Patrick, I don't know if you want to piggyback off of that or have anything to add.
Yeah, so yeah, it is early to kind of talk about the forgiveness for 2021 PPP loans, because most folks have not used it all up for their covered period, which is anywhere between 8 and 24 weeks. So we're kind of in that early stage. Stage 1 being the application stage, stage 2 being the use over the covered period, and then stage 3 is the forgiveness stage. But just in general, they'll be wanting to use it appropriately, like at least 60% or more on payroll, 40% or less on lease payments, mortgage interest, utilities. They can use it for operation expenditures, property damage due to public disturbances, supplier costs, and worker protection expenditures. So we broadened all those categories to give them expanded forgiveness. So hopefully that'll give them some leeway in using it and not having to worry about it.
Now, we've been talking about this second round of PPP, but what about those folks that never got a first PPP? Are there folks that are now eligible that weren't eligible before?
Yeah, so I'll say a few things along those lines, that if you weren't able to get a PPP loan in 2020, now's the time, because of all the changes that have come about that make those loans more available through SBA Lender Match, which you can go in and link up with an SBA lender. And those are lenders that are doing PPP loans in your area. So go to sba.gov, click on the Lender Match tab, and then you can type in a short 10 questions or so, and it sends an email to all the SBA lenders in your territory. And then you can reply back to them as they, email you. So that's a really easy way to do it. I can also, if you send me an email, I can also send you a list of SBA lenders that are doing PPP loans across the country for non-bank clients as well. But chambers of commerce are now eligible. Certain 501c6s that were not eligible are now eligible. Marketing organizations are now eligible. Housing co-ops are now eligible. News organizations are now eligible. But the big change is really for those sole proprietors out there that use a Schedule C, they can now use their gross revenue to calculate their PPP loan versus their compensation. So that's going to greatly enhance their benefits in the PPP department.
Absolutely. That's great news. Now, are there types of businesses that are still not eligible for a PPP loan?
Oh, good question. That's a hard one. That's a good question. I have to think about that. Maybe Cameron.
Are MLMs eligible?
Multi-level marketing folks. I think they've had some pushback on some of those, but it just depends on how you report the real question is how do you report your income? And how do you report your payroll? So there's a lot of businesses out there that rightly so do not want to pay $1 more in taxes than they should and have to. So they minimize their revenue and increase their deductions and it shows less than they're actually making. And that will come back to bite them when they apply for a PPP because we're basing it on gross revenue and also on their compensation. So if they're minimizing those in their tax documents, then the PPP loans also going to be minimized because of how we calculate it. So that's the real kicker here in how folks are traditionally, wanted to minimize their taxes, and rightly so, but it ends up not being the best formula for them.
Megan, what are some ways to kind of balance that out so that, your clients are not paying more taxes than they have to, but that they're still eligible for the amount of assistance that they need through this program?
Right. Are you talking about like if we can't deduct all of our expenses?
Well, Patrick was saying that sometimes business owners will minimize or try to show less income so that they have to pay less taxes.
Right.
So what are some things that you've done in terms of planning and documenting income to make sure that your clients didn't have to pay a whole lot of money in taxes, but they were still eligible for the amount of this PPP or other assistance that they need?
So this is one of those situations where some of my clients that may not necessarily report their income correctly, that it hurt them. They weren't able to qualify for stuff because their Schedule C may show a loss year after year. They may over-report mileage, and I can only necessarily do a return with the information they give me. So this is a situation where some of my clients have learned the hard way that taking a loss or paying less taxes and having less income doesn't always help you in the long run. So yeah, that is definitely something clients have learned. And I think that's where one of the reasons why they changed the way sole proprietors, they're doing it based on the gross revenue. We just kind of, we always have people that come to us and say that they're paying too much taxes. And, I can't believe I made this much money and I have to pay taxes. Well, at the end of the day, business owners, we're in business for ourselves to make a profit and be able to support ourselves and our families. And part of that comes along with it is paying taxes. And, it's not necessarily the worst thing to pay taxes when you make a decent profit. So that's pretty much what we just educate our clients on is, you need to report your income and your expenses correctly. If it means paying estimates, we pay estimates. There is some tax planning, but I don't encourage, well, I don't think any CPA encourages your clients to report a loss year after year, but it's more about educating our clients about the proper way of reporting and, just planning for these expenses and the taxes.
So Cameron, I want to back up and get into some of the macro or some of the micro. What happens when a customer comes into the bank or probably calls you up and says, hey, I need a PPP loan? What is the process? How do I apply? So what is the process, Cameron?
So I think that's a great question. I think this is certainly a process that is going to vary from lender to lender. Of course, there's going to be an application process, and each lender might have their own specific application process, whether it's electronic, whether it's by paper, or, I've seen some instances where there's an actual person assigned that then goes through a bit of a questionnaire. So, of course, the first thing you're going to want to do is identify whichever lender is going to be proper and best for you. And then from there, find out what that process is. And for the most part, the process should, for the most part, be very similar from lender to lender. So you're, of course, going to have the application piece. With that, you're going to want to have a very big and large understanding of how you're going to be calculating these, these payroll calculations, which is, of course, going to be 1 month's worth of payroll average. So, looking at a 12-month period, what is your average monthly payroll? Multiply that by 2.5. And of course, you'll want to have that information prepared. You'll also want to have all of your tax information, payroll information ready to go. And you'll also, in the second round, want to have the ability to show either on a quarter-over-quarter basis or a year-over-year basis that you have that 25% reduction. So having that all prepared is going to be hugely important. And then also, really, really important, a lot of things that I've seen many times in talking with business owners and talking with different lenders, it's really important that when you're showing not only your 2019 documents and your 2020 documents, and maybe even in some cases you're pulling into 2021 documents, a lot of the things that really need to be aligned is the dates. I know that's been a huge thing where I've seen a lot of feedback in talking with folks amongst different areas of the community, where there's a lot of misunderstandings on how are the dates corresponding. So if you can imagine, rolling 12, meaning March 2020 to March 2021, is different than year to date of 2019 for 2020. So having all that prepared and having a really good understanding of how your documents correspond with each other, I think is probably, aside from the application piece, having your docs prepared and making sure that those are all aligning when you're doing year over year, references. I think that's going to be a huge piece and a big miscomponent as well that I've seen a lot.
Are these documents something that the applicants can prepare themselves, or do they need to be prepared by a CPA or bookkeeper?
I would say it's going to very much depend on the individual. We've got a lot of payroll companies out there that have done a fantastic job of helping their clients to have these documents already prepared and pulled. I know quite a few of the larger payroll companies and providers out there have already created tabs within their, online login where the clients can literally just go in and just pull an already prepared SBA PPP report, and they would just download it and as they're applying, add that in. The difference probably of what you'll find where that might be different and varying from person to person is probably going to be how they're going to show that 25% reduction. And Patrick, maybe if you could give a little bit more feedback on the specific documents that are allowed. There are certainly going to be different ways that each person is going to show that. Again, and referring back to how they're showing that 25% reduction, if it's Q2 of 2019 and Q2 of 2020 that they're showing, and it's only one quarter that has the reduction versus maybe a year over year, of course, that's going to be very different types of documentation. If you're showing a year over year loss, obviously you might have P&Ls or some type of audited tax return, where if it's a quarter over quarter reduction you're showing, obviously that's going to be very different from client to client. So I think it would very much vary on the reduction of revenue piece, but I think from a payroll standpoint, very similar to the round one process, where you'll essentially just need to be pulling however you're showing your payroll as a whole.
Now, when does the deadline end to be eligible to receive a PPP loan? And this, any of y'all can answer.
So as of today, it's March 31st of 2021.
Okay, so that's
So
a short
it's
window.
yeah, it's a couple of days, but in all fairness, what I would recommend is, if you're still in the search phase, try to wrap that up relatively quickly and get it in within the next couple of days. And some of the banks out there will most likely be wrapping up accepting applications maybe a few days or maybe a week before that final deadline, in order to make sure if they take your application, they'll be able to process it. So I would say try to get it in at least a week or 10 days before that deadline.
Can a business owner directly apply to the SBA, or does it have to be through a bank?
So the borrower is going to go through a lender directly in order to get their PPP loan, and they'll most likely go onto an online portal or something along those lines, fill out the application online, submit it online, and then that lender will submit it to the SBA, we'll review it, and then give them a loan number, and that's when the lender is able to disperse the money to the borrower. So it's still, there's some rumblings around Capitol Hill. There's emails flying internally with the SBA. Probably shouldn't say this, but there are there's legislation out there that's looking like it may be extending the PPP window. So I think everyone, the lenders are wanting this. The public most likely is in favor of that as well. So we'll all kind of keep our ear to the ground and see if that happens the next couple of days or weeks to come.
So let's say that I'm one of these business owners that is afraid of banks and keep my cash under the mattress. Does that mean I can't get a PPP loan?
Good question. I think, I think most folks report their income in some way, shape, or form. So if you can at least give the SBA, or the lender, I should say, a lender, a picture of what your revenue is, then they'll be able to make a calculation on how much your PPP loan should be. If it's all just, cash exchanging hands, then there's no way for us to document what your true revenue is, and you'd probably be out of luck in that instance. But if you file any type of tax document, then that would be a way to kind of double check that revenue.
And so are there any other grant opportunities through this program, or is the forgiveness of the loan the grant, is when it becomes the grant?
Yes, so the loan is structured as a 100% forgivable loan. So even though it's called a loan, it is a grant almost, in essence. So there's new information coming out as of today. I want to say there is so legislation passed yesterday that the president signed. There's a new 28.6 billion restaurant revitalization fund in the works, so that'll be coming out shortly. And then there's a $100 million program to establish a community navigator pilot program that will help small businesses across the country, literally navigate through all the COVID resources that are already out there, state and local, combined, and hopefully get part of the problem is just finding where the programs are and getting that information to the small business. So that's going to be a nice link of the chains there to get people the needed funding they're looking for. The SVOG is coming out in the next couple of days, hopefully. I think everybody's knocking on wood that it's going to be sooner rather than later, and that's the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. And that's going to be for the live venues that host performances, theater, music, museums, cultural arts centers. If you're a promoter, you would be eligible. And that's all that information is on the SBA website. And it's a federal grant. And right now, you can take a look at that and see if that would be a better deal than the PPP for your business, which I think if you're in that industry, it's going to be a better deal with additional funding. But you can take a look at it. And as of yesterday, those businesses were not able to apply for PPP and SVOG, so they had to pick one or the other. As of yesterday, they can do both. So that's a good benefit. They can now apply for PPP, and then if they get the SVOG, they can pay that back, because most likely it'll be more money than they would have gotten, which is PPP alone.
Yeah, because the PPP is supposed to be to assist you with that payroll, the
And if you
payroll
don't-
expenses. And
if you
then
don't have payroll,
right, but it doesn't account for that loss of revenue for those other expenses that these venues have had because they haven't been able to collect revenue because they've been shut down by the government. So that makes a lot of sense that they would provide, for a different avenue for these types of large venues, because I know they collect a large sum of revenue when they're in business, when they're in operation.
yeah.
So at this point, I would like to, I know we're running a little ahead of schedule, but I really would like to extend the opportunity for any of the audience members here to ask questions. So we're going to monitor, we'll monitor by, if you want to hit the raise your hand button so that we can see that you have a question. And I will continue to, continue with the conversation until somebody else raises their hand and asks a question. So at this time, feel free to raise your hand. If you can't find the button, it's few enough of us where I can see you physically raise your hand if you can't find the raise your hand button. So in terms of are there any additional tax considerations, Megan, that we need to be aware of with this PPP loan? Is there something tax related that we haven't discussed yet that business owners need to be aware of?
No, there's really not. We know what it was for last year, and we know that North Carolina, you're kind of in limbo. My recommendation would be to file an extension and wait rather than do an amended. That would be my recommendation at this point for anybody. And going forward, like I said, it's just kind of, we're hoping that the rules with the IRS is going to be the same as last year, but there's no guarantee. So just talk with your CPA, talk with your accountant about how to plan. If those expenses aren't going to be a deduction on your tax return, start to plan for what it's going to look like on your taxes. So you have that money put aside, or you're paying estimates, and there won't be any surprises next April.
Cameron, is there any insight that you wanted to provide that we haven't discussed yet in terms of the PPP loans? Are there any mistakes that you've seen borrowers come in that have made it either more difficult for them to get the loan, or where they've been denied the loan?
I think that's a great question. And I'll refer back to somewhat of what we had touched on previously. I think a lot of things I've spoken with folks on and seen a lot of is documentation requirements that unfortunately, were not necessarily followed correctly. you know, these are government guidelines here. So I think the most important thing, as kind of previously mentioned by a few questions ago, making sure that if you're providing documents with dates for 2019 and 2020, you know, it's so important to make sure everything corresponds. So if you're doing a calendar year of, you know, January 1st to December 31st, 2019, you know, making sure that that 2020 documentation corresponds with the same exact date. You know, trying to make sure that also you're very cognizant of if you're having a trouble, you know, if you're having trouble reading what you're providing, you know, put that question in your head: is somebody reviewing this who is not necessarily able to speak directly to me to understand my thought process? Is somebody else going to read that? So maybe having a second pair of eyes to review what you're submitting and making sure, hey, does this make sense? You know, there's of course going to be varying payroll reports or different types of reports that might look different, and that's certainly understood. But at the end of the day, does it make sense? Is it very clear in understanding what the direct point of where we need to be looking is? And again, I'll say it one more time, just making sure if we're showing dates and reporting, making sure that that all corresponds together, because that's so important. And of course, there's so many business owners that are struggling out there, and that this is their lifeline. And so, of course, in the sense of thinking about time, trying to make sure that that's all prepared and ready correctly on the front end is just going to make a faster process for that business owner.
We do have a question from the audience. Kathleen, if you can unmute yourself, tell us what type of business that you have and ask your question.
I have two businesses. The one I'm here for today, though, is my 18-year-old business, Auroros Incorporated. We did not apply for the first round because I didn't think we qualified for the first round, but I do want to apply in the second round. We lost substantial incomes for that company. And of the list, Patrick, that you just sent me, are there 2 or 3 I should reach out to? That's an awful long list. Are there 2 or 3 locally that you found that Raleigh business owners have had some success with?
I don't have anyone in particular. Some of those are nonprofit lenders. I always like to think they're really a good, you know, part of the community. So the Grow America Fund is one of them. They're a nonprofit lender that do really good work across the country. But they're all very capable lenders. Like you'll see that there's some, I think, is it Squares on there, I think, and Cabbage, I think, is on there. And those are all the online lenders of the Etrius Ventures, I think, is one of them.
Cabbage is not on there, and Etria Ventures is. Okay.
Yeah. So Etrius Ventures does the lending for Cabbage.
Okay.
And you know, they're very quick to get funding out there, but like I said, they do not have a local presence, and so there are benefits and drawbacks to not having someone you can come and talk to, you know, and you know, discuss your PPP loan with. Because if it's all just going to a call center in some other state or country, sometimes it's hard to get the information to the right person if that loan were to go sideways. So there's always ways, there's, you know, pros and cons to everything. So, you know, I would try to work with your local lender if possible, your current lender if possible, to get that first draw for you, because you did not take one in 2020. So you would technically be taking a first draw PPP loan this year in 21.
So our company was actually debt free. So we didn't have any liabilities. To support the company, I actually put a lot of stuff on my own personal credit cards. So what are some local banks? Because I'd prefer to have a local relationship. What are some local banks that have served small business owners really well during these times?
There's so many. I mean, I really can't, you know, give you a list of any particular one. The community financial institutions are the ones that, you know, initially got off the ground to help small businesses. And those were like M&F Bank, I think was one of them. Self-Help Credit Union was another. But those are the ones that were, you know, that were given that special window at the very beginning of that 2-week window at the very beginning to help the smallest, the underbanked, and the hardest hit. And so those are the lenders that kind of come to my mind. But literally, you know, B of A, First Citizens, all those large banks across the country, Wells Fargo, they're all doing PPP loans as well.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I agree
Cameron,
with
did you-
Patrick that there is value in working with an actual bank. I have many clients that have had to do theirs through the loan source because their bank isn't processing PPP loans the second time around. And they've been great. There's been success, but when there's a problem, there's nobody to actually pick up the phone and have a phone call with. And I've been trying to help this one client who is probably in his 70s in Florida for the winter. And his son is running the business from up here, but all the documentation, all the communication is through email. And every time I log into the loan source for them, it tells me that an email was sent with something new that they need. And the father in Florida can't find any emails and there's nobody to call. So his son and I are trying to figure it out. And every time I log in, a code goes to them and then I have to get the code. And so there definitely is value in finding, even if it is one of the larger banks, the national banks, that you can actually have a person that you can call. There's definitely value in it.
Speaking of larger banks, Cameron, did you want to put in a plug for yourself there?
Well, here's what I can definitely say. I think whether it's any of the larger banks, whether it's the community banks, I think at the end of the day here, you know, much to the original question that was posed, I think at the end of the day, if you're still looking to apply and for some reason your current relationship, which is the first place you should be going to, is not able to facilitate, I think taking this approach as any business approach in general, you know, reach out to the, you know, these different lenders and much to Patrick's point, and, you know, understanding the pros and cons, try to really understand those processes as well. So if you're still trying to apply and you need to find a bank, my recommendation honestly is at the end of the day, if your current bank and your current relationship is not able to do it for whatever that reason is, you know, reach out to those individual banks, try to find out how the process is going for that bank. You know, what's the timelines look like? And I would honestly say too, you know, weigh out the pros and cons, but at the end of the day, what's the bank that you talk to that feels the most comfortable to you? I would approach this just like you're buying a new car. You're going to look at the cars, you're going to kick the tires. So if you're trying to still find a lender, weigh out the pros and cons, reach out to some of the banks. If they're a smaller community bank or a larger bank, ask about what the process looks like and how it's been going so far. And honestly, I would definitely take that approach, interview them, ask them questions, see how you feel about it. And at the end of the day, whichever one has the most pros for you and whichever one makes you feel the most comfortable, I think that's always going to be your greatest bet and your best way to move forward if you're still needing to apply.
Awesome. Absolutely. She's saying thank you, Cameron. I don't think his video, he's called in, so I don't know if he can see us. Did we have any other questions? This is a time.
I
when
have
you
a question.
Okay, Holly.
And I'm not sure, Patrick might be the right person to answer this. So the 25% loss that you have to show, does that have to be a yearly loss, or can it just be in the months that COVID hit? Like, so I have places that have completely shut down for those months and they were down 25% at that time. But now if they look at their whole year, they're not necessarily down because they were up pre-COVID.
Yes, so the guidance is that you compare specific quarter to specific quarter. So you want to see a decline either in quarter one of 2019 compared to quarter one of 2020, right? So you had a decline in 2020 in quarter one compared to quarter one of 2019.
Okay.
And so it goes down the line, quarter one versus quarter one, quarter two versus quarter two, 3 to 3, 4 to 4. And they have to, you can't mix and match. They have to be the same quarter or annual. So if you can show just a decline in your annual gross receipts from 20 to 19, that would also qualify you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But that's just gross receipts. That's not a loss. So let's say your expenses ended up being higher, you know, but your loss wasn't a 25%. You didn't have a 25% reduction in gross revenues, but you had way more than that. You had a 25% difference in loss. That doesn't matter. It's just all gross receipts, regardless of your expenses.
I think that would still qualify, right? Because if it's a loss, then you're still in the same ballpark, right?
Yeah, because I know with me, I'm showing and put my business out there. I'm showing a loss because we're not putting the PPP, you know, loan as gross receipts. So I had a loss in terms of the number of receipts, gross receipts that I received, but my expenses were higher because I had an additional full-time person.
Right.
My understanding is, but it's definitely something to look into. Like I had a client, to go with Holly's question, I had a client that his revenue was up like 12,000 last year. It's a restaurant. And the second quarter, we were here in New Jersey, they were shut down for a while until they could do outdoor dining. So his second quarter was down to peanuts. But he spent a lot of money, and he already had outdoor seating, and he had enough area that he could triple his outdoor seating. So at the end of the year, his revenue was up, but based on that second quarter, he was able to qualify. Now he won't qualify for that Restaurant Revitalization Act that Patrick was mentioning, because that is based on the difference of 2020 to 2019. So because he showed more revenue, he won't qualify for that. But yeah.
Okay, I see. Pam, you have a question?
I guess I'm learning something. So the quarter to quarter comparison, I thought that was for payroll only, but it's receipts. It's revenue quarter to quarter.
Correct.
So yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's for the yeah. Okay. Perfect.
This is for eligibility for the forgiveness,
Okay.
not for eligibility for the loan.
Yeah, so those are really complicated these are complicated questions because it's a complicated program, right? I think what we're probably talking about is the eligibility in order to receive a second draw. And you do have to show a 25% reduction in order to receive a second draw. And how do you show that reduction? Well, you compare the first quarter to first quarter, second quarter, third to third, fourth to fourth. If there was a 25% or more reduction from 19 to 20, then you're eligible.
And so again, I'm just going to repeat it to make sure I have it.
Yeah.
That deduction is in income receipts. Doesn't have anything to do with payroll.
Does not have anything to do with payroll.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And then when we talk about the forgiveness side, which will be coming up, we'll probably do this again when forgiveness is in our minds. We'll talk all about those, how to get forgiveness, and you have to meet certain payroll thresholds, right? And not reduce it below 25%. And that's a whole other phase of the PPP program I don't want to really get into right now, because everyone's really thinking about eligibility on how to get a PPP loan and use it versus forgiveness, which we have plenty of time for that.
And just to clarify, so on that the 25% loss, if they got a first round of PPP, they would not be counting that as income in that part, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Kathleen, I just
thanks.
want to comment on what you just put in the chat. You said you took massive hits in third and fourth quarter. If you didn't take the PPP the first time, you don't need to show a reduction in income. The reduction in gross receipts is only if this is your second draw. So if you didn't take it, it doesn't matter what your gross receipts were. I had clients that refused to take it last year because they were convinced it was a scam. And then nobody gets free money, and they were taking this loan that they would have to pay back at high interest rates and not be able to pay it back. Like, seriously. So now I have a few that are like, okay, look at this. All these people got this money and it was forgiven. I guess it's not a scam. I have another person, and this is another situation. Right. I believe it. Like, it did seem kind of too good to be true.
Yeah,
Right?
hey, I'm not laughing at that whole logic because I was there.
Anybody can go to the government website and pull the bill. Like if you read the bill itself, then you know it's not a scam. But you know,
Yeah,
people are at a point now where they don't
forgiveness-
believe what they hear. Not everything's fake.
Thing seems scammy to people. I had another client who was in personal bankruptcy during the first round of PPP. And so that kicked him out completely. And he's in an industry, he does ambulance transportation. So they weren't like, his industry went to almost nothing for months because nobody was being transported to doctor's offices. But he had to stay open to transport COVID patients from nursing homes to the hospital. And he finished his, and it was personal, his business was out of it. He finished his bankruptcy in February. And I told him, I was like, get that paid off so the trustee can file for your bankruptcy to close so you can file for this round of PPP because it kicked him out the first time and he was able to apply this time. So there's definitely situations where people couldn't get it the first time, but they should look into it because they very well could get it this time around.
Carnella, you got to unmute yourself. Madam
Nikki,
President.
I'm so glad you said that because I didn't apply the first time either. I had a whole lot of mixed feelings and then some other stuff, getting a new accountant in the process and all of this stuff. But I'm glad you said that. Now it's like, okay, I can apply now because I didn't apply the first time.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I applied, I didn't get it the first time. So now I can apply and hopefully I'll get it. Okay, thank
And
you.
I think people applied right away and didn't get it because the money ran out and they got discouraged and didn't want to try again. So now, yeah.
And Cameron, close your ears. My bank waited to the last minute to respond back to say, oh, we closed it. I mean, I thought I was the only one that was complaining about that bank, but I saw some emails and some texts.
It was everything. We had
I saw emails and things and posts, not texts, but posts where people were complaining how they like dragged their feet at the last minute. And then right before that deadline, it was like, okay, we're not taking anymore. And so it wasn't Bank of America, I can say that. So, but it was another large one.
Pam, you had a question?
Yeah, I did. I'm just trying to understand. So if you're going to take the first round because you didn't take it before, you're going to take that now. How does that impact taking the second round? Like, can you take both rounds under this separate set of rules?
Sure. Yeah, that's the intent of the program. So for those that were fortunate enough to take a PPP loan last year, they're taking a second draw now. And for those that are just taking a first draw in 2021, you may not have enough time to go through the base period of 8 weeks before you can take your second. But cross our fingers, knock on wood, if Congress extends that window for PPP program, we may end up pushing it out another month or two. So there may be a lot of folks that are able to do first draw in 2021 and second draw in 2021 if they leave the program as is and just
Okay, so it's
extend the
that
deadline.
window that you have to meet in terms of collecting money on.
Yeah, they can't,
That's
the
good to know.
covered periods can't overlap.
Okay,
And you have
great.
to have
Thank
used
you.
all your money first before you can take your second draw.
Gotcha.
So higher up, I guess. Well, now it's in terms of the expenses, it doesn't just have to be payroll. Under the first law that was passed, it had to be, was it 90% payroll expenses, and then 10% could be rent and some other expenses, but now those expenses are more broadly defined. Can you explain that? So if someone is taking their first draw of the PPP, in terms of what those expenses can be used for, do they fall under the limitations of the first act, or are they able to expand those expenses under this second act?
Cameron,
say that-
I can take it if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're all under the new expanded expenses.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you're a small business owner and you take out a PPP loan or had one or are going to get one, you want to spend at least 60% or more on payroll and 40% or more on the other forgivable expenses, such as lease payments, mortgage interest, utilities, transportation, and newly added things such as group insurance, vision, dental, disability, life, and also operations expenditures. So if you want to put your business online and beef up your software or your online presence with cloud computing, or you have HR needs or accounting needs, you can use PPP loan money for that. You can also use it for supplier costs. So if you order something and have to pay for it, you can use PPP money for that. And if you need to protect your workers, like plexiglass or masks or sanitizers, you can use it for that as well. So it's opened it up quite a bit. And that would be the 40% you could use it on. But 60% for payroll, 40% for other.
That provides for a lot more flexibility for business owners, because
Sure.
you do have, especially in small businesses, sometimes because payroll is so expensive, you outsource a lot of those things, so you might have like I've just recently started adding on more VA type services, or, retaining companies to handle certain aspects of the workload instead of hiring an additional employee. And so, in order to do that, a lot of times you have to have the software and the tech to be able to share that information. So it's good to hear that they thought that through. It's like sometimes when I see bills come out, I see laws passed, I'm like, they didn't think that through all the way, like they didn't think about the effects of this or that, or how it would affect this person, or the need, But as well, I think when that first PPP loan was, or the first COVID relief laws was passed, they expected that things would be opening back up by, the end of the summer or the fall is what they thought. They thought it would be, August, September of 2020, that we'd be mask free, we'd be back, everything would be opened up, we'd be back to normal, economy would be rolling again, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Did anyone have any additional questions? Okay, so, we could sit here and stare at each other for another, 40 minutes, but I don't see the need to do that. So I'm going to turn it back over to Carnella, our president, to close us out. You're muted still, Carnella.
I like to talk to you, button, okay? This was excellent. Very informative. I can't wait to share it with our members. I know we have several that have been hit, quite a few actually, that have been hit very hard. And this is going to be great information. It is, they still have time, but like Patrick said, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. I just want to thank you. I want to thank everybody that was on the panel. I want to thank everybody in attendance for asking the questions and not being afraid to just be vulnerable and, you know, share that I need help. That's what it's all about. So thank you, Patrick. That Relief Act, send us any information that you can share with us about that PPP, that, you know, anything that we can share, we'll do a e-blast. Holly's and Karina have been really good just posting stuff. Just to keep people informed, and we're placing it on our social media pages as well. So that's been really good. Thank you, Megan. Wonderful as always. Thank you, Cameron. You're always there with us. And Karina, she knows how to ask the questions, and so that's why we always have her moderating some of these ones, because she knows what questions to ask. So thank you, everybody. I won't hold us up. You know, we don't need to stay to just to look cute and at each other's faces. If we have questions, we'll definitely reach out. Any information, again, that you can send, we'll take it. And to those that are listening to the replay, call on SBA, call on Cameron, call on Megan and Karina if you have questions about your business and the impact right now. And if you haven't applied, definitely apply. Kathleen, I believe this is going to work out for you. You've been hit extremely hard. My business too has been hit very hard because I go into universities. They are my major clients. Residential is my part of my business, but commercial, Duke University is one of my major clients. I was a student at Duke, and they're one of my clients. And when they shut down, it hit me hard from a design perspective. I know a lot of interior designers have truly been impacted. And I didn't want to go to some of my clients' houses that were emailing me saying, can you come to my house? Because I'm sitting home or I'm working from home and I want to do design projects. And I was like, no, COVID is real and I'm not playing with you all. So, but I connect with some of the realtors and that's helped me a little bit, but not where I would like to have been. Pam, I saw you light up, so I can say you got some valuable information too, right? Definitely. And then Holly, you got some more information. Okay, she's in the background. So we see Megan put her information in there. I'm gonna close it down. Oh, Patrick put his, and then we have cameras as well. So if there are no other questions, thank you for being up. There's cameras. Thank you for everything, and have a great rest of the afternoon. Join us next Wednesday. We look forward to seeing you then. Take care.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.